Years ago, when I was in my early 20s, I took a job in the suburbs more than 20 miles from my downtown apartment. It was a really cool place in a great neighborhood, so it was worth the commute. One night on my way home from work, I decided to stop at a used record store in a strip mall near where I worked. I had a crush on my hipsterish neighbor who collected old jazz on vinyl and thought maybe I could find something there that would give me a cool excuse to flirt with him. While I was in the store browsing, I noticed a gray-haired man in the next aisle looking at me. When our eyes met, he smiled, and I politely smiled back. I usually don't notice much about random people that smile at me, but there was an intensity to his eyes that caught my attention. He had one of those smiles that looked forced or insincere. I browsed around in a few other sections, but every time I looked up, I noticed the man staring at me. People stare. Whatever. So I tried not to think too much of it, but I kept noticing him position himself across from me in nearly every aisle. It was clear he was trying to flirt, but I wasn't interested. For starters, he was at least twice my age and definitely not my type. I just decided to pretend to not notice, even though he was repeatedly moving into my line of sight. I asked the staff for some help with the jazz section and eventually made my selection, Illinois Jacquet. As I was waiting to be rung out, I did a quick glance of the store to make sure the guy wasn't still lurking. Thankfully, he had left. I walked out to the parking lot and got into my car. The strip mall was along a busy thoroughfare, so I had to wait until traffic cleared to turn out of the parking lot onto the boulevard. While I waited for an opening, I just happened to glance in my rearview mirror and noticed the car leaving the parking lot behind me had a burnt-out headlight. Nothing weird about that, just happened to notice. So like I said, the drive home was a long one, but mostly a straight shot along this busy thoroughfare. I merged into the left lane and pointed towards home. A few miles into the drive, I once again noticed a car behind me with a single headlight. Was it the same car? If so, it struck me as unusual that he hadn't passed, changed lanes, or turned off by then. I was listening to music and thinking about what to make for dinner. It was getting late, so I decided to stop for some fast food instead. Arby's? Taco Bell? I remembered an Arby's a couple of miles from my house and a few streets over. Arby's it is. During the drive, I became preoccupied with planning which outfit to wear when I brought the LP to my neighbor's place. But I kept getting this nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach that compelled me to watch my rearview mirror. I glanced up a couple more times to see the one headlight car, still behind me, at least half a city block back. This was now easily 12 or 13 miles from where I first saw it. I was definitely aware, but still not overly concerned. It was a main thoroughfare that ran all the way from one end of a big city to the other. As I neared the turnoff toward Arby's, I switched to the right lane and slowed down. Once again, my eyes were drawn to my rearview mirror. Sure enough, the car with one headlight changed lanes, slowed, and turned onto the street behind me. Now I suspect I'm being followed. So I continue in the left lane and wait until just the last moment to switch to the right lane to pull into Arby's. As I make my turn, I try to watch for the car with one headlight. I don't want to have an accident, so I manage to only catch a brief glimpse of the car as it passes on by down the street. It's a gold sedan, but I can't make out any other details, and I can't see who's driving. I'm just relieved it wasn't following me after all. So I relax and proceed to the drive-thru for my dinner order. I got my food and navigated my way out of the parking lot. The way the retail parking lots were designed, I had to exit through a supermarket strip mall lot, then out onto a side street in order to double back toward the main thoroughfare and head home. It was a long left turn, but it had a turn lane. I blasted the radio and nibbled on a few curly fries while I waited for my green turn arrow. I see a flash of light reflect across my rearview mirror. When I glance up, I see a car pull up in the turn lane behind me, with a single headlight. My heart jumped into my throat. I frantically locked all my doors and turned off the radio. The light turned, and I pulled away as fast as I could, speeding back toward the boulevard. The single headlight turned to follow. I am now certain I'm being followed, and I know in my gut who it is. At the time, my state didn't require front plates, so I couldn't see a license plate number. This was also before most of us had cell phones, so I couldn't call for help. As I pulled back onto the main thoroughfare, I desperately try to recall where the closest police station is. I can't remember. Yes, he's now behind me again. I am definitely not heading home, and I don't want to piss this guy off. I remember a fire station a few blocks from me and decide to head there. 2 or 3 turns on the back streets, and sure enough, the car is still behind me. He's hanging way back on the side streets now. I start to approach the fire station, but it's not as well lit as I'd hoped and the doors are all closed. I drive past slowly, then decide to scrap that idea and head back out to the main road where there's lots of traffic. Just before I reach the main boulevard, as the one headlight car slowly approaches from behind, I yank my steering wheel and swerve all the way from the right lane to the left turn lane. The car behind me just stops in the middle of the road. The driver now knows I'm aware he's following me, so I guess he decides screw it and pulls up beside me. It's that gray-haired man wearing a big, creepy smile on his face. I know I'm giving him a look of horror and disgust, so he just shrugs as if to say, "Okay, you caught me," then motions me to roll my window down. I just slowly shake my head. I can hear him yelling out his window. "Look, I thought we had a connection back at the record store. Can I buy you a cup of coffee?" I mouthed no at him and turned left. I am absolutely certain this guy did not follow me nearly 20 miles to ask me out for coffee. I doubled back through several side streets to the fire station, pulled up to their front door, and laid on my horn till someone came out. I think the guy gave up following me after he was discovered, but I sure as hell wasn't about to take any chances by going straight home. A couple of firefighters came out and called the police for me, who arrived and escorted me home. To this day, I always wonder what would have happened if that guy's headlight wasn't burnt out. I would never have noticed him following me, and I would have driven all the way home. This happened in either 2009 or 2010 when I was in my first or second year of college. I was home for the weekend visiting my now ex-boyfriend. I usually went to his house for the night, and my parents generally wanted me home by 2 a.m. I was in college, but their house, their rules, so who was I to argue? Before I continue, I need to describe my hometown. I am from a tiny Midwestern town. When I describe where I am from, I generally refer to the county I'm from, which is very well known as a vacation community, rather than the town. My county is a unique place that consists of farmland and state parks with small towns in between, all of which are populated by galleries, boutiques, and expensive restaurants. In general, it's a very safe place. Coming home from my ex-boyfriend's house, I basically leave one of the small towns and head to another. It is about a 20-minute drive with woods and farmland surrounding the roads in between. Rather than take the highway, I tended to take back roads because it was faster, and I was very familiar with them from using them to avoid tourist traffic in the summer. The incident didn't occur until I was almost home. I was coming off a back road about to turn onto the county road I live on. I was waiting to turn right with my blinker on. Once I made the turn, it would be less than a minute's drive to my house. I was stopped at the stop sign because there was a vehicle approaching from the left, and I didn't want to pull out in front of it because it was dark, and I was having a hard time judging how fast it was moving. This vehicle did not have to stop, as there was not a stop sign on the county road. I noticed something weird then. The vehicle seemed to be slowing down. It didn't have a blinker on, but I thought maybe it was going to turn right onto the road I was sitting on, so I waited. At this point, the vehicle was close enough that I could tell it was a truck. The truck had now come to a stop, and I realized it wasn't going to turn. It was waiting for me. I made the decision to pull out onto my road. The speed limit on my road is 55 miles per hour. I didn't do much to exceed that because I was trying to determine what I would do when I got to my house. I didn't have any more of a plan with my driveway approaching, so I whipped into the driveway, parked in front of the garage, shut off my car, ran into the garage, locked the door, and made my way into the house. I don't think I'd ever booked it into the house that fast. Once in the house, I walked immediately to the entrance to our rec room, which has windows that look out upon the road and our driveway. I looked out just in time to see headlights shining in the windows. The truck was turning around in our driveway and going back the way it had come. I'm a delivery driver for Uber Eats, and I have been doing it as a side gig for the past year or so to earn some extra money. Also, I'm a girl. Anyway, yeah, Uber Eats. It's a super chill job, although the pay is definitely not ideal, especially at night. Normally, any pings I get after 10 p.m. are just crappy fast food orders to customers where the chances of being tipped are even lower than what they already are. Anyways, yeah, late night deliveries, rarely profitable, which is why I would barely do them. However, on this night last year, there was a bonus going on. Reach 15 deliveries in a certain time frame to get an extra $75? Music to my ears. When that's the case, late night deliveries rock because there's no traffic, and it doesn't matter where you're picking up from. The faster you can get them done, the faster you get to go home and knock out. I was on a roll and finished my last run at 2:30 in the morning, cashed my bonus and called it a night. For context, this took place in downtown San Diego. Downtown has fun restaurants and clubs at the core, but as you branch out, it gets more seedy. Once you get past 16th Street, it gets really sketchy. Lots of homeless camps, the works. I actively try to avoid that area, but in order to get back home and on the freeway, I had to pass through that neighborhood. One more piece of info. I drive a 2002 shitty Ford Focus, and nothing's automatic. In order to roll the windows up or down, you have to reach over and crank the lever. Because it's a hassle to roll them up and down manually each time, when I do deliveries, usually I just keep both my windows rolled down, because it's easier to pick up and deliver through the windows. This night I had my windows down as usual. I was planning to roll them up before I passed 16th Street where the homeless camp was, but didn't get that far. As I turn down a side street heading towards the main drag, up ahead I see a man in one of those orange reflective construction vests standing on the side of the road. There's always some sort of construction going on downtown, and it's pretty common for it to happen at night, so I didn't really pay much attention. As I get closer, though, the man runs into the middle of the street, waving his arms, signaling stop. I start to slow down, thinking he's going to direct traffic or reroute me or something. I brake to 10 miles, then 5, leaving distance trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. He breaks out into a jog towards my car and stops directly in front of it, blocking me and my car from moving forward. Immediate unease. This is weird. I'm wishing my windows were rolled up. It's 3 a.m. on a dark street and there's not a soul around except me and this dude. People talk about fight or flight, and I've always wondered how I would react in a situation that warranted a similar response. Now I know my reaction is to fucking freeze. Because as I was slowing down, it hit me 5 seconds later than it should have. This guy is not a construction worker. He has on a hard hat and a vest. And the creepiest smile I've ever seen in my life. At first I thought he was just smiling to be friendly, but smiling to acknowledge someone longer than a few seconds is super unnerving. Try it right now. Count to 5 in your head while grinning, and you'll see what I mean. That's what this guy was doing. Now that he's in front of me, I can tell he's homeless. That or just, I don't know. Older guy, I would guess 60s, but homelessness has a way of making everyone look old, so who knows really. He's just staring at me. Wild-eyed and smiling, all teeth. Honestly, his smile and mannerisms, the best way I can describe it is Twisty from American Horror Story. Literally though, this guy looked insane. I obviously should have reversed, but my brain was panicking and I didn't think that fast. I'm frozen in my car thinking this is how I die. This whole time he's not saying anything, just leering. Then like a ninja, he jumps onto the hood of my car and slams his fists against my hood. I am frozen in terror just watching this guy. He starts pounding on the hood of my car, crawling around on his hands and knees, not saying anything, just crawling and staring at me. That was the most terrifying part. He never broke eye contact once during all of this, and he never stopped grinning. The thought of my windows being open made me want to throw up, but at the same time, breaking eye contact and moving to roll them up felt scarier. Like if I made any sudden moves or looked away, he would try to come inside the car. He never said a word. I think it would have been less scary if he said something, but he didn't. Just pounded his fists on the car and stared. In all reality, this whole encounter probably lasted all of 15 seconds, but it felt like days. I am freaking out, and before I can gain the sense to do anything remotely intelligent, I see headlights in my rearview mirror coming up behind me from down the street. This man sees them too, and in an instant, he jumps off my car and breaks off into a run, behind me heading towards the new car. I floor it and don't look back until I'm halfway home on the freeway, and at this point, it's all adrenaline. For a long time after that, I stopped delivering at night. I sure as hell don't go to that section of downtown anymore. I take the longer route home. And I don't drive with the windows down at night if it's in an area even remotely run down. What I realize from this is how naive I can be to just automatically trust someone just because they have a uniform. Like, I didn't even question slowing down at first even though the situation was sketchy as fuck. The opposite, actually. In my mind, I was comforted by the fact that somebody trustworthy was on the road. Subconscious thoughts went like, oh nice, a public servant doesn't want me making a wrong turn. By the time I stopped, It would have already been too late if this guy wanted to attack me. I shudder thinking about it. I calmed down eventually by reassuring myself that this was probably just a crazy dude on drugs who meant no harm, which, hopefully, that's the case. And for my own peace of mind, I'm going to believe that it is. But what got to me is the fact that this guy was dressed as a road worker on the road and deliberately behaving at first in a way that led me to believe he was one. Why else wear that getup, and why are you trying to pull cars over? Just to freak people out? I don't know the answer, and I'm glad I didn't find out what he wanted from me.